being prolific in and of itself is very difficult. But being prolific in the team, as a team, is even more difficult. It adds a new layer of complexity, but it has rewards that can't be measured by conventional standards. What is teamwork, Austin?
That is actually a tough question, because when you think about it, it's like, oh, just working together as a group, to accomplish a goal. That's a elementary definition, I feel like. But teamwork is a lot of things. And as you work as a team, you begin to realize how much more teamwork is and how much more it means to your success as a team, success as a business, and even success as a person. Because I would say the teamwork that we've built up over 13 years has not only encroached on our business, but on our personal lives as well. And when I use that, I mean it in a positive way, because yes, working together as a team helps you as a team get stuff done. But once you work with someone for so long, you start to realize where you're good and where they're good, and where your role makes the team go. And we were talking about this earlier, yesterday, I believe, about how certain things wouldn't be able to get done if I wasn't here, and vice versa. Like, there's certain things that Jose is great at and has the expertise on, that if I wasn't there, if he wasn't there, the shit wouldn't get done to the same, extent, and vice versa. And when you work as a team, you start to realize the thing that makes you important and crucial to the team in the first place. And without that, you wouldn't be able to succeed as a team as well, because you would be operating by yourself as opposed to together. And it's like Steph and Clay. If you're playing basketball with Steph and Clay, or Michael Jordan and Scottie, or we can say LeBron and D Wade, or somebody like that, right? LeBron and Kyrie. Separately, they're monsters by themselves. Still, each of the players that I mentioned could potentially lead a team to a victory by themselves, right? However, when you add two top-tier players, two top-tier minds, two top-tier thinkers and doers and athletes to a team, it makes things more difficult for the opposing team, because more often than not, there's different qualities that they possess that makes them good at the game of basketball, or at the game of life, business, entrepreneurship, right? So when you bring those two things together, you're able to accomplish more and attack from different areas and different angles, which allows you a more broad option to winning, as opposed to if you were just one person by yourself and only had one particular skill set, or two, skill sets that you had, right? So teamwork is essential to winning at life to its fullest extent, because there's only so far that you can go by yourself. However, if you get someone who's just as competent, if not more competent, on your team with you, and that specializes in something that's different than what you would normally specialize in, it allows you to go further in life, because they bring something to the table that you didn't have.
One of the biggest keys to teamwork is balancing egos. I actually think that that's the primary obstacle that most people fail to get past. And when I say balancing egos, I don't mean just balancing yourself within yourself. I mean balancing the two temperaments that both of you may have. And this isn't limited to two. This could be a team of 3, 4, 5. It could be an nth number team. It could be a huge team. But oftentimes, I think where most people have an issue with, it's accepting certain roles under certain circumstances. An example that I'll give you is when Austin and I meet certain people, both of us can't share the limelight. Not two people can make a single introduction. Only one person gets to make the introduction. Otherwise, you have two people talking at the same time and you don't have an authority in the conversation. This could be different depending on the community that we're in, the individual we're in front of, or the context of the situation. And if you cannot control your ego in that context, if you're not the one in the limelight and you can't tolerate that, you're either going to blow up in the situation or hold resentment that builds over time and then eventually becomes a problem. So if you can understand that, if you can humble yourself and understand that, hey, it's the common good, it's the common goal that we're working for, not for attention or not for recognition or not for a singular piece or component. You have to understand that there are multiple pieces within that puzzle. And on top of that, it's not you that's important, nor is it your team members. It's the whole organization and the end goal that is the actual goal. That is the only thing that matters. If you look like an idiot standing there saying nothing and nodding and smiling, that's okay. So long as the outcome of the conversation is positive or is a learning opportunity. It doesn't matter. As long as the end is the result is what shows. Because if you're striking $1 million deal and you don't get to negotiate or brag or show anything, but you walk out of there with your team and you close that $1 million deal, isn't that all that matters? Or would you like to say, oh yeah, I was the lead pitcher and and I answered these hard questions and boom, boom, but you didn't get the $1 million deal? It doesn't matter. Now, that's not saying don't contribute, nor don't hold your own weight, nor is it saying be that one team member on a team that doesn't put any work into the group project. It's just to say that do your work and know your position or know the role that you play within that context.
Exactly. And that's something that you're going to have to figure out, I guess, for yourself, is knowing when it's your time to step in to make a play. Because, and we reference this all the time because we've played sports growing up and all that shit, but just think about it. If Jose and I are playing and it's crunch time, somebody has to hit the game-winning shot. I set the pick for Jose. He goes around the pick. The person, they switch. And in that switch, I slip, which means I go to the basket, leaving the person who switched, my man that switched or that ended up switching on to me, and then Jose's man that's guarding him. Both of them are still at the top, right? I slip to the basket. There could be an opportunity where Jose says, fuck it. I am going to do some cool ass shit and hit a step back three to end the game. Or I'm going to make the right play and pass it to Austin, not because it's Austin, but because the situation calls for it. Then that would potentially lead to more success than saying, hey, I'm just going to take the game over and do it my way. And say Jose does take the game over and, does it his way. And two scenarios. One, he makes it. Or let's just say, we'll start with the one. One, he misses it. He misses it the first one. And then after that, it's like, well, clearly you had two people on you, so that probably wasn't the best decision. You probably should pass it to the person who's open, cutting down the lane. So clearly that's the one that you should have made. And then there's also the other one where he stepped back, hit the three, game's over, he wins the game. However, was that the perfect situation in order to pull that off? Maybe not. And even if he does make it, and we've seen it before with people who are bad shooters, not saying that's you, but in general, we've seen it with people who are bad shooters, they'll make one. And we play with people who make one shot And we're like, how the fuck they make that? They never make a three. And then after that one shot they make, they think they can make the rest. It's not the case. So just because you do something one time in a not so good situation and it still works out, that doesn't mean that it should be something that you should replicate often. So knowing the correct time to do something and the correct situation to do something as a team player is very, very important. And knowing your skill set as a team player is very, very important, because your ego or your lack of knowledge when it comes to what makes you a integral piece of a team could lead you to sinking the team in general. So one thing that I think is very important about working with the team is knowing yourself and also knowing the person that you're working with. And of course that takes time, but if you really know the person that you're working with, you're able to get into a situation and not have to prep for it as much. You can get into a situation and based off the flow of the conversation, who the person is looking at, who the person is asking questions to, yada, 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 you're able to maneuver and go through the conversation and negotiation the correct way. And we find ourselves in that situation more often than not where, again, we don't plan and say, hey, we're going to say this, we're going to say this, we're going to say this. We go up, we fucking talk, and then the conversation ends up going how it goes. And when you know how someone reacts or know how someone responds to certain things and how they're certain triggers for them to say certain things or certain tips, certain notes, certain phrases and shit like that, it helps understand when you can step up and say something or when you're supposed to step back and, fall to the wayside and let the conversation go through that person. And then more often than not, that leads to us coming out of negotiation or just conversations successfully, because we know how to go about doing certain things and how to go about initiating conversation and also going through the conversation. So that's something, again, that's taken a lot of time for us to get to the point to where we just know. But that's something that I believe that if you're working with someone, you should take the time to get to know the person that you're working with. And it could just be little shit, know why they act how they act, know why they, only talk to certain people with this tone, or why they don't like to talk to certain people that wear red shirts, or just some bullshit like that. It could just be little small things like that where you find out the reason why, and then it helps you understand, okay, this is the reason why. So if we get into a situation where that person is talking like that, or is wearing that thing, or is, being rude like that, this is probably how they're going to react. So you could potentially prevent something that could happen or mitigate it when it comes up.
I think that comes about with practice.
Yeah, for sure.
And the biggest thing that I would say is with teamwork, you have plays. You run plays. You set established things, whether verbally or non-verbally. You come up with ways and routines in which you communicate, in which you attack problems. Because all of life is competitive, and essentially you're always competing. Every moment, every conversation you're having, it's not that you're trying to win a particular outcome, because I would argue that is kind of not psychopathic, but what's the word when you are very
narcissistic?
Yeah, it's very narcissistic, and that that might be the way that you choose to live life, and that's fine. Your life is your life, but essentially there's a best case scenario, and you're just trying to win the best case scenario. Whether you're directly competing with the person in front of you or the group in front of you is up for debate, but you have plays, routines, and methods by which that you collaborate and corroborate in order to win the best case scenario. By being in more scenarios and by practicing outside of those scenarios, by battle testing your teamwork, right? Traveling to different countries, putting yourself in new situations, going to the gym, going for a cup of coffee, going to a bar, being in uncomfortable and awkward situations. The more time you spend together, the more you practice, the more you understand the individual that you're with, the more you practice that teamwork and that collaboration. And like I said, it doesn't have to be something that you set out with a goal of saying, hey, we're going to understand each other better. That's not anything that Austin and I ever said verbally, but it just comes about with living together, doing things together, growing together, and struggling, not eating, a lot of things, going broke, a lot of things, heartbreak, a lot of things. Over time, you practice, whether you intend to or not, you practice and practice and practice that teamwork. And you play how you practice. Those plays that you go through, how much effort you put in is going to be the same that you get when it's game time. So you can never blame circumstances or situations on their impact towards your outcome. Your outcome, the outcome of any situation is always determined by what you put in. What was your effort? What was your practice? How did you train for this? It's not, I got sick and I couldn't perform. No, it's I was sick and I still performed because we practiced so damn hard that we knew exactly what to say, how to behave, and how each of us was going to respond under every tension. We understand that, hey, in this negotiation, you're going to be aggressive and I'm going to be passive, or vice versa.
And the odd thing about it is, though, I would say, as far as when you say practice, it's not how most people would think of practice, like, oh, talk in the mirror and talk like practice about, you know, how you're going to do it when it actually happens. When it comes to having your own business and starting something yourself, practice is actually getting out there and doing the actual thing multiple times. So that teamwork only improves by real-time game experience, which could be practice as, you know, something that you take to the big win. Like, you take that information, you take the things that you've learned from those constant reps to the big win, which may be, you know, you negotiating $1 million deal or something like that. That's still all the things before that $1 million deal were real-time, real experiences that you had to go through in order to learn what you needed to learn to close that $1 million deal. But it wasn't practice in the sense of it's for play, and if you fuck up, it doesn't matter. Everything that you do, every negotiation that you have, every conversation that you have in regards to your business is real-time game experience. Because what you say, whether it's for that particular person or for everybody that they know, means something. So if you fuck up and you say something that you shouldn't say, or you know, fuck up and, you know, say something wrong as far as the facts about your product and they know that it's wrong, or you talk or speak incorrectly, you fuck up and say a curse word in front of people who don't normally talk like that, all of that could potentially kill a potential consumer, customer, client that you were going to work with. And now you no longer have the access to them or their network because you didn't go about things correctly. So all of the shit fucking matters. So it's real game experience that you have to treat these situations as. And it's kind of, I'm not gonna lie, it's scary when you think about it like that. For most people, you see it as like some big fucking dragon that you have to slay. But again, the more that you go against these dragons and the more that you go up and, you know, slay little ones and all that type of shit, the more you realize that this is something that you're capable of doing, and it's something that you're going to have to put in the work in order to get better at. And once you do that, shit works out. But again, going through real life situations, like Jose said, also helps with teamwork, because especially real shitty situations, because when shit is good, you might learn shit a little bit here and there about a person, right? But when shit is bad, when you're losing money out the wazoo, you can't fucking sleep for shit, you're not eating like that, your fucking personal love life is shit, your family is getting on your back about X, Y, and Z, the fucking rent went up, your electric bill went up, all these things that are happening to you are going on. That's when you really get to find out who a person is, when shit is not going that well. And that's how if you go through it, you can really understand the person that you're on the team with and how you can work with them and how you can work with them to accomplish the big win and larger goal. So I'd hate to say force yourself into some shit situations with your friends or your business partners or your team to test the shit out. But if you're going through that currently, a tough situation with a friend, family, or whatever the fuck, you're allowing yourself to figure out things that you wouldn't have figured out otherwise. And I think that's a good thing. Go through that shit. And if you come out of the shit on the other side with the person still and y'all are still, in good contacts and in high regards of each other, then you will have figured out things and little intricacies about them that you wouldn't have known otherwise, which allows you to go to the next level and defeat the bigger dragon and accomplish the bigger goal and close the bigger deal and shit like that, because you really learn these little things about the person that makes them tick. And I think that is a very good thing to go through, even though when you're going through it, it's not going to feel good. But when you come out of the other side, you're going to be like, wow, I've learned so much. And now I have all this experience with this person and I can use that to my benefit and vice versa.
Trial by fire.
Yeah.
No better way.
Indeed.
The AM Club Podcast.
Signing out.
Mic check. The AM Club Podcast.